Hello everyone, and welcome to Lab15, which is a balloon debate. I am Daniel Popescu, and I am the head of the Centre of Expertise for Local Government Reform, which is a Council of Europe unit helping governments to reform legislation and local authorities to improve their governance. Now, I will be your moderator today, and we will have three contenders, three experiences to be presented to you in a balloon debate format, which I will explain to you a bit later. And we'll also have three challengers here, who will be the first one to launch questions, hopefully challenging, and to put them in a difficult position. Now, we also have, the discussants are Sorin Ionica, who is a researcher, political scientist, and a columnist, I suppose, and we have Stephen Clift, who is a specialist on e-democracy questions, launched a very famous e-participation website, and he's also a specialist of NGOs, I suppose. And then we have Thomas Sepp, who is the executive head of the Tallinn, so he has hands-on experience. As you might know, Estonia in general, Tallinn in particular, have a lot of experience with e-democracy questions. So if you want, we have here, I would say, well, the brain, the soul, and the muscles to challenge the participants. This balloon debate format, it means that it's a bit of a beauty contest, if you want. You will get to vote at the end who stays in and out. So the theory goes like this. We have three participants in a balloon which is punctured, and it loses height, so it can only hold one person. So we will have to throw one person at a time out of the balloon, and you'll be the ones to choose who will go and who will stay. Now, of course, we invite you to be very selfish in your voting. Do not please only vote based on the beauty of the practice itself or on the quality of the presentations, even though I know very well this will be very important, but also on very, I would say, self-serving criteria. What can you take back home from their practice? Is this something you can learn from? Is it something that can be used to give guidance to the others who are trying to develop or to use, let's say, electronic governance initiatives? So the reason is very simple, because our rapporteur, Mr. Lemon Kitten, right? I'm sorry, who is a member of the Congress, will have to present in the afternoon the conclusions of your debates to the plenary session. So now what will happen today is basically we'll have a first round of presentations of the three practices. Then we'll have questions. The first ones to ask the questions will be the challengers, but I can also take a few questions from the audience. They will have to answer those questions, and then we will have to vote out one of the participants. We'll have a second round of discussion, a shorter one this time, and then we'll vote out a second one, and we'll have a winner. After which, we'll have more time to make a more general debate, to see what we have learned from this, whether there are general questions, general remarks, and other interventions. Okay? So let's try to, without any further delay, to give the floor to the presentations. Now, they have to draw some lots, so we have an order of presentations. And I suppose the first initiative to be presented is Puzzled by Policy, which is a European experience, and Deirdre will make these presentations in 8 minutes or less. Thank you.
Here? Okay, so it should be on now, great. So my name is Deirdre Lee and I'm from the Insight Centre for Big Data Analytics in Galway in Ireland, and I'll jump into the presentation now and talk about Puzzled by Policy, which is all about enhancing policy through citizen engagement. With the clicker. So on the one hand we've got citizens who discuss lots of issues with their family, friends, colleagues, but they're still disengaged from the policy making process. On the other side, you've got the policymakers in Europe or at the national level making the policies. But is it representative and will it be effective? Will it be implemented on the ground? So research has shown that citizen participation, it improves policy, it makes it more effective and helps it to be actually implemented and so useful. So how to engage citizens in participation? Well, citizens have a low level of trust in policymakers, especially at the moment. And the policymakers, well, they're quite unprepared for the sudden urge or the sudden kind of high level of direct citizen engagement. What do they do with this information overload? So in the project, we've kind of come to this, I don't know, maybe finding, or maybe it's quite obvious, but to really kind of bring it down to key elements that is necessary for successful participation. So on the one hand, we've got key topics. Topics are issues that are really interesting, that will engage people, that will excite them, that they will want to have a say on. Active decision makers, so important from the very beginning. The policymakers are there, they're committed, they're listening. And also a critical mass of users. So not just a couple of people here and there, but really getting people on board. Now, having all of these elements together is very difficult, and to try and manufacture it, to try and control it in a top-down way, it's quite difficult to do, quite hard. But again, making it or allowing it to happen organically is equally as difficult. So that's really what we're trying to help or support with Puzzled by Policy. Now, you notice so far I haven't mentioned anything about ICT or the E in the e-participation. These are just general elements for participation in general. So in Puzzled we've taken a combined approach because there are benefits to online and offline participation. Online is great, that it's accessible, you can go to the website whenever you want, wherever you want. It's open, there's a public record for analysis, for machine readable data, it's brilliant. But offline also has its benefits. There definitely is a digital divide. So for accessibility, there also has to be offline approaches, which could be traditional media or maybe a combined approach of IT in public places. It also helps to build trust and relationships and to elaborate on discussion. So we really see benefits of using both. In the project, we've designed an online platform which consists of a profiler, which helps citizens kind of gauge where they stand in relation to certain issues and start them thinking about the issues in a really fun, easy and simple to use way. Then they're directed to U-Debate, where they can elaborate on discussion and more richer and deeper debate. We also have the widget, which can be embedded in any website, blogs. So we try and go where the citizens, where the communities already are, not to try and drag everyone to our platform. And throughout the project, we've seen the development of social media just really being more and more important. So in the later stages of the project, we've carried out some research in trying to integrate, not only trying to get people to come to the platform and put the widget on their website, but to really integrate at a data level. From the data from our platform, from social media, from open data, to have it in a common interoperable format. Okay, so a lot of e-participation projects, the current weaknesses will be around not enough usage, impact and sustainability. In Puzzled by Policy, it's run in 4 different pilots. We've tried it in Italy, Spain, Greece and Hungary. We currently have about 200,000 page views and 6,500 what we call active users, so who have completed a profile or quiz and have participated in that way. We also have 10 active decision makers, again active, and around 100 different NGOs across the pilots who are actively engaged. We also have some usage outside of the trial partners, so not directly involved in the project consortium, which shows its potential for general use. I'm not going to read through these, but this is just to show running a trial, so kind of bringing the platform to a community and engaging with them around topics, having offline workshops and face-to-face, all of these elements. is really time-consuming and consists of lots of different elements, from trying to design the strategy, to setting up, managing it, moderating it, encouraging, disseminating. It's a time-consuming process, and it's not to be dismissed, this process of engagement. So in order to kind of maximise the success of the engagement, these are just a couple of key success factors. Now, I know there's a lot of text here and a lot of lists, and they're all available in our best practices guides, but I just wanted to highlight some of the particular elements that you could ask maybe me about more detail in future. So, for example, the partnership with mediators in the policy field is really essential. There's also many challenges, and so we kind of divided them into conceptual, policy, technical and operational challenges. So, for example, maybe even in our project we took a combined approach, but maybe there was too much emphasis on the technical element. Also within our consortium, NGO organisations that were involved in the immigration field were not direct partners. We felt that maybe could have been better if they were directly involved instead of starting to engage with them during the project process. Impact, this is kind of general level impact. There was a high participation of hard-to-reach users because in the policy topic that we were dealing with, immigration policy, immigrants themselves we defined as hard-to-reach users. So that was a challenge for us, but we felt that we had an impact there. Building networks were great, and these networks will sustain beyond the project between the NGOs, the policymakers and so on. The policymakers beginning to embrace IT and social media and so on. Just a couple of very specific cases of where we've seen the impact. So, for example, in our Spanish trial, and there they focused on the topic of integration of the migrants that were already in Tenerife. So they kind of worked with all of the community, so not just the migrant community, but the community in general, of how they could improve that. And together they proposed, so this organically grew, to have an intercultural faith meeting. And this was a physical event, so a real event. One day all different representatives from different faiths came together and had a joint celebration. And this was the first time such an event happened in Tenerife, and it was a direct result of the Puzzle by Policy process. A couple of testimonials from the policymakers that are involved that really see the value in what we were providing them with. Okay, so this is really important. What can you bring home was one of the questions that you were asked. We wanted to set this up to have it as sustainable as possible. So everything that we developed, everything that we learned, that we could pass on beyond the end of the project, which is in December. So we have an adoption website, which is here and it's available online now. The platform itself is open source. You can download, you can utilise it right now completely for free, and you can customise it, adapt it as you want. The best practice guides, the guide for conceptualisation for the policy profiler, all of our material, all of our publications we provide online. Now, I mean, if you would like kind of some more support, then we can maybe provide some services on top of that. I mean, if you need kind of help with the hosting, with the actually running the trials or something like that. But we really wanted to make it as accessible as possible. And
1 minute.
Okay. And the existing website is still there, is still online. So the policy profiler, the content, if you want to create a new discussion around immigration policy or any other policy, it's there to use. You can create a discussion today and be its own moderator. So that's just a really important part, that it's like we want it to be used as widely as possible. Potential adopters, it could be from government, from the public sector, universities, NGOs, lobbying think tanks. I mean, it can be applied for lots of different reasons, and I'm sure you're all thinking yourself, how could I use this in my organisation? I hope. The project itself is European Commission funded. It ran for 3 years. I was the coordinator of it, and we had 12 different partners. So I'll just ask you end with the question, how will you use Puzzle by Policy? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. So that was contestant number 1. Deirdre with Puzzle by Policy. So as time is very short, we are going to number 2. That's Pedro with Citizens. Pedro comes from Spain, and he will present Citizens.
So, thank you very much for the opportunity to share our views and to present our project of construction of citizens. Okay? This is a system that aims to make truth at the local level the promise of our logo, Todos Contamos. which means at the same time we all have a say and we all matter. So we are not going to talk very much in this presentation right now about the system as such. I think it is interesting to have here a conversation to talk about our theory of change. So what is the underlying philosophy and what is the diagnostic of reality that is justifying our approach, so how the system is being created. So these theories of change are very important because usually there are a lot of projects that just go on with a very technical perspective or just some hype, buzzwords, and getting a real good theory of change. It's very important because if you run the risk of scratching where you are not actually, so the problem is not. So, and this is something that we think many of the European projects suffer from. And additionally, so if you get your concentration on the symptoms and not on the real reasons of what is not working, you risk starting to become part of the sickness that you were intending to cure. So, and this is happening very much on this domain of democracy, where projects are just contributing to the status quo. So I wanted to use some time to present one example of my country, but since there is not so much time, I will just move forward. So what I wanted to show you is how Spanish democracy, which has been like 35 years already, in fact, it is quite dysfunctional, so it has not evolved since it was created, and it is reaching a point of very strong disconnections between the political class and the citizens, as you probably have heard. So the popularity is getting very low, and what the government is doing is trying to criminalize protest and with this kind of measure. So you have to believe me when I say that Spanish democracy is a broken democracy. But this is something that was, in other presentations, was many times said. So democracy is failing, but not only in Spain. Spain might be a very special case, but actually everywhere you look at, the United States, European Union, and many countries, each of them with different logics, but democracy seems to be failing. It's not surprising, because as was told many times, so this is what democracy, liberal democracy, is offering at the time where what we are expecting is something like this. But the problem is not technological. This is actually our main point. The problem is more an essential problem. It's related to the essence of democracies. Because what is democracy? We have been told, it's a very old definition, that it is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And this is very nice. It is a nice intention, and partly this is democracy. But there is un secret, il secreto, that could be said in the Vatican language, that it is not the truth. So democracy, as many other government systems before, so was not created so much to increase the public participation, to promote the citizenship, etc. So this is kind of like the theory. So we have this idea of how democracy is supposedly working, but the fact is that the reality of how it is working is different. So democracy, as so many other forms of government before, is actually, yeah, the government of the people, but especially by some people and for the benefit of especially some people. And we all know, but this kind of inconvenient truth needs to be said. Okay? So, for sure, democracy is much better than other systems that were before, but the reality is that the intention is, yeah, it is inclusive, but it is inclusive to the point where, like to include enough people as to prevent any revolution, so that the status quo can be maintained, okay? So, what does it mean this for local participation? This is about local digital democracy. Local participation in the 20th century simply never worked. Well, it is exaggerating a little bit, but so our culture, we are prepared more to be consumers than to be citizens, There is a lot of intrinsic problems with participation. That means it is difficult. There is also extrinsic problems that are related to how participation is done. And, well, there is like a vicious cycle, and it does not work. But there is one very, very important problem, and it is that there was this monopoly of the administration, of the government, of participation. So precisely the actor that is less interested in having their power of decision disrupted is the one who is promoting participation. So it has been said that participation is something that is desired, but it is not wanted. And for sure there are, especially now, there are more and more people that are working in the administrations trying to change this. But this is more the exception than the rule. So this is kind of the type of participation that normally is promoted, so top-down, controlled, innocuous, and inside-out, where the government is going out, asking some questions, but finally they keep all the decisions, and what is not wanted is precisely the kind of participation that we are trying to develop, so that it is mixing bottom-up with top-down, that it is emancipating, which is creative, and that allows that people are actually going inside government, becoming part of government, not something that you just consult but keep outside. So, and this is the main theory of change for us. What are the implications? Whenever you want to create tools of e-participation, they, well, need to be based on a non-naive understanding of the reality. So if you assume that, oh, politicians, they are really so willing to interact with citizens that they just need the tool and, well, you will not have any success. So, these tools need to be integrated with institutions because whenever government is part of a participatory process, there is much more capacity to affect decisions, but they cannot be depending on the goodwill. That means that whenever a government, a local government, is not supporting it, so citizens must be able to carry out participation without the government. Okay? And the second thing that we got is that they need to be constructed using a wise, collaborative, and people-centered design. Everybody who is making these tools will say that they are using that kind of people-centered, etc., but the reality is that it is very difficult. To be wise means that you need to put all the knowledge and research that has been done, and additionally, create the system incrementally. So starting on simple things that are really satisfactory, that reach critical mass, and then working iteratively, keep improving it. Okay? One example of WISE. So this is the typical models that are proposed by the OECD and to characterize participation. So this information, consultation, and
1 minute
active
left.
Participation. Or empowerment, but this is, for us, it is ridiculous. So just to characterize local democracy, this is the kind of dimensions that we need to consider, just to see how inclusive, etc. So collaborative means that you need to work with all involved actors. So social movements, associations, and for sure politicians, public workers, media, and you need to work with them very strongly. And people-centered mean that you need to feel that you are at the service of the people. They need to trust you because they need to know that you are trying to create something that is done for them, not that, that you are trying to fulfill a project that they need to keep your agenda, etc. So you need this kind of empathic understanding of people's needs, aspirations, capacities, and incentives to be able to know what they need, even if they do not know. And based on all this, this is the question that so which ones are the most essential?
Could you please come to a conclusion?
This is the conclusion.
Okay.
So that change makers at the local level have, so what needs citizens is satisfying, and well, if you like the theory of change, you have to keep it on the balloon, and this is what we will present in the next.
Thank you very much, Pedro. That was Pedro with citizens. May I remind those of you who came a bit late that at the end of the presentations and after a few questions and answers, everybody will be invited to vote on who stays in the balloon and who leaves the balloon after the first stage. Everybody meaning, with the exception of myself as your moderator, of your rapporteur and of your 3 panelists or challengers, but everybody else, including the interpreters, will be invited to vote. Interpreters are very often the most important participants in our meetings, whose voice is the most, let's say, heard, but probably the less listened to, so this time we'll ask for their vote as well. Now, third contestant is indeed Benjamin and Vivian, and they come all the way from New Zealand to present us Lumio. The floor is yours.
There is no better way to introduce Lumio to you than to read an email from a young woman in Brazil who wrote to us as people in Brazil were hitting the streets. We are in the middle of an interesting process in Brazil, as I'm sure you are aware. We see a lot of energy, good energy, rising among the generation of young people in our country. But we still don't know exactly how to achieve this country that we dream of. We read about the experience of Wellington with your software, and it seems exactly what we need now. An online tool for digital natives who are now waking up to their political power, that is able to give us the space we need to transform our dreams into concrete action, to help us relearn how democracy is made through engaged discussion and informed participation. My name is Vivian and this is Benjamin. We are here from Aotearoa, New Zealand, a long way away. And it's our real pleasure to talk to you about a tool we've developed to make democracy an everyday activity. So we want to show you an online tool that we've developed to make it easy for any group of people, children, young people, politicians, to participate in the decisions that affect them.
So the origins of Lumio really go back to 2011, where you've got this wave of pro-democracy movements all around the world, sweeping through the Arab Spring movements, through to the Indignados and 15M movements in Latin America and Spain, through to the Occupy movement, starting in New York and then spreading to 3,000 cities all around the world. So my experience in Wellington was of hundreds of citizens coming together in a public place and just starting to talk about the serious, big, systemic issues that we're all facing and to start talking about how to come up with solutions. So seeing this was a really transformative experience for people involved in the movement all over the world. Seeing a group of people come together and just realize that democracy isn't something that needs to be locked away in big institutions, but it's something that we can just do together, coming together in a public place, sitting down and talking, deliberating, and making collective decisions. So we got to see the really bright side of collective decision making when it runs well. So when all perspectives are included in a process, you build shared understanding and you can come to clear outcomes that are better than any individual would have come to by themselves. But we also saw how difficult and fragile the process can be. So when loud voices dominate the discussion, needing to be in the same place at the same time really cuts down on the accessibility of the process. And we thought that surely we could use the internet to just break down these practical barriers to more participation in decision making and just capture the essence of collective decision making in a really easy to use online platform. So after 18 months, we've got a very usable open source platform for any group to come together, have deep discussion and deliberation, and come to clear shared understanding and joint decisions. So Lumio is currently being used by 8,000 people in about 30 countries around the world. It's translated into 12 languages, and it's an open source platform, meaning the code is held in the commons. So we're really seeing this as building public infrastructure for collective decision making and everyday democracy online. So the diversity of groups that are using it is one of the most striking things about it. So We've got social movements in Hungary using it. Open source software projects are using it to coordinate their development across borders. And young people in environmental organizations are using it. And in Wellington, the city council, the local government, is using it to consult and collaborate with citizens all over the city. And in this example that I'll show you, the city council used it to bring together citizens from diverse stakeholder groups to co-create an alcohol management strategy for the whole city. So this shows a discussion started in a group. So these were discussion groups of 50 people, hundreds of citizens participating from very diverse backgrounds. So some people in the group, their livelihood depends on selling alcohol, so liquor store owners and bar owners. Other groups have seen their communities really seriously harmed by alcohol. So people from residents associations, students, high school students, residents associations, community groups, and they come together. Anyone can start a discussion on any topic. So there are city council staff in the discussion as well, so they can start discussions, but anyone else in the group can start a discussion too. So here you see a discussion topic, and then you have a place to set the context. So this is providing information so the group can have a well-informed discussion. Then you have discussion continuing down the left-hand side of the page, and when the discussion gets to a point where someone in the group feels like it would be good to test an idea out with the group and see how much agreement there is, anyone can start a proposal. And proposals come up on the right-hand side. So there's a very simple decision-making protocol where you can agree with the proposal, you can abstain, you can disagree, or you can raise a red flag. And when people participate in the decision, they give a brief summary statement explaining why they've made the decision that they've made. So if a proposal closes without clear agreement, the discussion can continue, and in the real discussion we saw people calling, asking questions directly of council staff for more information, or bringing in people from emergency services or community organizations that have specialist knowledge to inform the discussion. So when the discussion continues, anyone can propose an alternative proposal, and generally this will be a proposal that builds on the first one and really sort of addresses the concerns that were raised in response to the first proposal. So typically you would see agreement building over time, and you can see the groups coming to better conclusions than any individual would by themselves.
So the goal of Lumio is to begin where people are at, and wherever in this internationally recognised spectrum of participation you begin, to move through from inform to really empower groups of people to make decisions as close to where the people affected by the decision are at. So we feel really encouraged now with hundreds of Lumio groups around the world in many different situations, some political, some educational, some families. We have families making decisions about care of their elders when they live all around the world. They are really taking control and empowering each other to be involved and participate in the decisions that matter to them. What we're passionate about is that the public democratic system moves through this continuum to collaborate and empower, so that our public democracies become more distributed. And what Lumio's goal is to make sure that there's a citizenship who feels confident and really well resourced to participate in those decisions.
1 minute.
So our future vision is that young people in the world grow up expecting to be involved in the decisions that affect them. And for that reason you will find Lumio in schools, you'll find Lumio in community centres, you'll find Lumio in families and in local governments. In New Zealand, the national government's using Lumio to consult with young people, and the whole idea is that we get to a place where this is just a core expectation of citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. So now you have heard the three presentations. and we will take a vote in 25 minutes. We had not only very interesting presentations, but also some animation from some young representatives of the young people. This was not arranged in advance, by the way, I can reassure you. Now, we will ask questions, and I will ask the three participants to reply to them in opposite order. And we'll have maybe 4 or 5 questions, the first 3 from the challengers, and then I will also invite participants to ask a couple of questions, and then I will ask the participants to take maybe 5 minutes each to respond to these questions. So I invite you again to ask practical questions about not only about the technical aspects of various initiatives, but also about what is good and what is less good in them, and what we can learn from them. This is, I suppose, the most interesting thing for us. So who is taking the floor from the challengers first? Okay, Thomas.
Thank you first for very nice presentations. Really enjoyed them. Thank you for youth reaction. Like Chairman said, I am the muscle side of the process, so my questions are exactly in that side. So, first question to all is about there are many possibilities for the citizens and organizations to establish different forums, use social media like Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and tell their opinions through different portals. Why your solution is better than all these other possibilities? Why people should use your solution, not the existing ones? And my second question is, what will be end of your process? You will finish it having a good proposal voted by community members. What will be the next steps? How to involve decision makers into your process? How to get the real result out of your work? These are the muscle questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. So, well, thank you for an excellent series of presentations, and take some good notes on all these good questions as they pile up, right? So my NGO, E-Democracy, we build local online communities in neighborhoods. We even go door to door. So imagine that you are speaking with a 20-year-old daughter of an immigrant family, and she is her family's main connection to, in our case, the English-speaking community for information, or the majority language in your area. The question is, what is your message to her about how she can use your service in a relevant way in her local community, local democracy?
Thank you for your brilliant presentations, and I also have a question for the three of you and for these kind of methods in general. I come from a region which is Eastern Europe, the post-communist world, where the citizens are quite cynical and we have a very low stock of social capital, as we call it. So people don't associate very freely, they don't participate because they distrust public institutions in general, and for good reason, I would say, in the past and in the present. What you put in place, all of you, are in a way you use new technologies to transform a concept which is quite old and which is called direct democracy. So we don't work only through representatives but take part directly in government. This is the idea, basically. The question for you, how can we in a region like mine, which is quite big actually, and I would say it covers also the former Soviet Union, how can we overcome this cynicism about participation when we know that direct democracy has also drawbacks? And the drawbacks, we've known them all along. This is good. These methods are good for one-issue campaigns. These methods are good, you know, to engage people for a very visible theme. But how can you round it up with the level of resources you have? How can you put everything in balance and avoid the very activists becoming cynical when their proposal, which they care very much about, proves to be impractical when you discuss it in the council, and you would add up all such proposals and you end up with 3 times the level of the budget, for example. How can you, you know, put all these things in context? Thank you.
Okay, so I will take maybe 1 or 2 more questions from the floor, give the floor to the participants, and then we'll see if we have time for a second round before the first vote, second round of questions. So questions from the room. Yes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Wolfgang. I work in Germany at the moment. My question will be, yesterday we had a lot of discussion about the question of who is the cloud. The word mob actually fell. Youth? Hey, where is my... Thank you. My question would be, how do you address the question of making sure it's not the mob? Obviously, I disagree with the term mob, but it was mentioned yesterday. So, as I understand also from this forum, the next big business or obstacle we're facing is to manage or to know who the cloud is. And your tools, how do they address the question of analyzing the cloud?
Thank you. I will take just 1 more question, if people are very quick. Yes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Tom Levenstein from the Netherlands. Just one very simple question for all presentations. What I do not see or miss in a way, but perhaps I should not miss it, is any kind of link to the political parties system in the different countries. Meaning that you can, of course, stimulate participation by citizens, and of course you can use modern technology, and that's really a future, I think. But in a way, you should also not forget that democracy is funded based on political participation, political ideas, political visions, whether they are right or wrong, but that's also part of the democratic debate in itself, I think. Well, that would be, I think, an interesting question for discussion and debate. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have put our participants in a difficult corner enough, because they will have to answer something like 8 questions in 5 minutes each, so we'll see how they handle this. So we'll start in reverse order, so we'll start with Lumio, Benjamin and Vivian. So who wants to take the floor to answer 8 questions in 5 minutes?
Thank you. Okay, so we'll split our time between the 2 of us, so maybe we face even more of a challenge. So the first question that I heard from Thomas was why we think our tool is better than existing social media tools like Facebook and email and and Twitter and other popularly used tools. I guess the easiest way to answer this question is that Lumio is purpose-built for productive, respectful discussion that comes to clear conclusions. So a large section of our user base are people who are escaping from other forms of social media that they've been trying to use to collaborate and make participatory decisions and having a really difficult time. So something we hear very commonly is, you know, trying to have a meeting or an election or a collective decision-making process in Facebook is like trying to get work done in a shopping mall or having an election done in a shopping mall. So constant distraction and lack of focus. And the social context of Lumio in comparison is, you know, everyone knows that they're there to participate in a respectful, productive process that's focused and has a clear shared purpose. Another question that came through, actually in 3 questions, seemed to be really focused on the result of this process and how it translates into existing political institutions and existing political processes, so particularly the party political system. In the City Council example that we talked through, the result of that process was that City Council staff had a synthesis of citizens' ideas and concerns and could see areas of shared agreement that they could then feed into their policy development. They also had a neutral space online where they could come back to these groups and show the draft policy in development as it was going through different stages and get direct input from people who were very engaged in communities into that draft policy. And they could also see where shared agreement was in different areas of the actual policy that was then turned into legislation, turned into law. So that's one example of how it can be used in conjunction with real policy development, and you can get real citizens' voices engaged directly in the existing political process.
So perhaps I could pick up the question about the young migrant woman in her household speaking English on behalf of her family, and what would Lumio offer her? One of the things that we're really proud about Lumio is it's extremely easy to translate into different languages. So currently it's in about 12 different languages, most of them European languages at this stage. And so one of the things is to gather a community to around her language and make sure that there is a language that interfaces between the language her family is speaking and the world that they are predominantly living in. And what we found in New Zealand where that happens is that the community drives what they want to use it for very fast. So rather than us coming up with an answer to that, it's more like figuring out the supports or resources that give that decision back to them. And a bit similarly with the question about political parties, because we made a choice to not start with political parties because we knew the least about it. And in agile development, you kind of do a bit, learn a bit, do a bit, rather than figure out what it is you think you might have to do and then do it wrong. So as we've gone along, political parties have started showing interest in Lumio, and now we're working with them about how they will use it to distribute their policy development and maybe in the future to distribute decisions that they take in our political process. So, that principle is very much part of Lumio, that as people show interest, as people see the vision of what it could be in their area of expertise, then we partner with them to make it happen in the way that they're envisaging it, rather than us kind of pretending that we're all things to all people. Yeah, and my last comment that I'd like to make is, I don't think Lumio will be the best tool in all of the range of tools that exist. I think it will be a tool that will be right for some people. And what I'd love for us to achieve is an interface between different tools that really easily supports people and groups to make a choice about what's right for them.
So the two remaining questions were, how do you deal with the challenges of the crowd and this sort of spectre of mob rule? And so what we're seeing is the people that are drawn to Lumio come with a clear shared purpose, and that clear shared purpose is about building agreement. It's not about a majority rules vote where 51 people want one thing and 49 want another, and you go with option A and disenfranchise half the population. So this is much more about building shared understanding and coming to a clear agreement. The last question was about the challenges of scale, which I think are very important to consider in any form of participatory or direct democratic process. And the place that we're starting, as Vivian mentioned, is with relatively small groups of people, so up to a few hundred people, and they are using it in a variety of ways. Some are using it as a representative system, so you can have one group that then has a representative to another into another group, and you can have a group made up of representatives from many groups. So that's one way of dealing with scale.
Okay, so I suppose we'll stop here. Thank you for your answering basically all the questions. And now the floor is to Pedro, who presented you citizens.
Yeah, so I think I will kind of continue with what they were saying because, yeah, so I think the proposal for citizens is quite aligned with what Lumio is doing actually. So what citizens, I never explained what it was doing. So the first question was why it is better than the existing solutions, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So what citizens tries to do is very hyperlocal, so it is very linked with cities, and what the system is trying to do is to help people, empower people which are getting things done. So it is helping them especially to get informed so that everybody is able to know what is happening around them on the subjects that matter to them, and on the other hand, so for people who are doing things to be able to inform about these things. So this system does not need to be better than Facebook or Twitter or Lumio. So it needs to be part of an ecosystem and to be complementary. And there are things that right now it is very difficult with existing media. So you can get information usually about things that you are kind of connected with. But it is very difficult to really say, so what is happening around me that I could get involved in? So another question was about how do you get do you get results? How do you overcome the cynicism? They are related questions. In this case, so the citizens is not, the system is just supporting people doing things. So it's not the system who is having impact. It is the people who are using the system to get coordinated who in the real world. So in this case, it is not like you will discuss in the virtual world and then reach conclusions, etc. It is much more supporting an ongoing activity which is happening in your neighborhood, and additionally you keep informed in the internet. So it is the real world which is getting this impact by interacting with politicians or by doing whatever means. So the idea is that you can have processes that are about influencing policymakers, and then the people who are running them, they will find the ways. And you can have processes where you are just trying to organize yourself, and then you do not need to have this access, okay? The question for this lady who does not speak, so the main functionality of citizens is she would be able, first of all, to get to know what is related to her. And also, for these small communities, it is very difficult sometimes to overcome the barrier of making other people aware of what they are doing and who they are. And in this system, they would have like a very powerful reach, because the idea is that this is complementary to Facebook, to all the other tools, to Lumio, for having this kind of deliberation. But it could be like one point where everybody in the city knows that if they want to know what is happening on the civic, political level, they can go there and have information filtered by their interest. So the link with the representative, that's very, very needed, because I think representatives are a little bit, they are scared about participation sometimes, and they have very good reasons for it. But they need to develop also learning processes. So the focus of citizens is you provide tools for people doing things, and these tools are provided for groups of citizens or for the municipality. So the best case is that they are working together, but, and this will be privileged. But if not, it will be citizens who will organize and make pressure. And maybe for the next time, if something like hard happened, it will be the politicians who will be saying, hey, we want to be there. Please call us before you are organizing these things. We are there for you. And finally, about the mob and the crowd, in most of the systems about deliberation, etc., usually you do not have, there is no point on voting or on just I like it or whatever. It is people who actually eventually in the local level are going to meet each other. So as soon as they are making progress, they are going to say, let's meet and discuss in person. And it is not anonymous, it is like this kind of positive interaction that we are having here, for example, by meeting. So additionally, you can have functionalities that prevent this kind of misusage of the tool. Okay? And I think more or less I was asking the question. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And now I will ask Deirdre to answer these questions in her turn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so to start with the social media, I guess to reflect what the lads have said here, the social media is great and has a purpose. I mean, it's informal, people can discuss, they have very large communities, there's the linkages between friends. So I think it's a great place to discuss policy issues as well. An approach like Puzzle by Policy, it targets kind of a specific area as well. So it's looking not only for kind of informal discussion, but also to help people learn a little bit more about the policy and the issues that are related to it. So we kind of look at a inform, consult, empower approach. So first of all, they can learn, okay, immigration policy, what's that about? What does it mean? So that, okay, they might know it's to do it maybe for employment purposes, but not family reunification or studying. So they get to learn a little bit more about it as well. There's another kind of aspect for if it's a platform or a website or something that's associated with a particular public authority or with an organisation, an NGO or university, it does have a certain reputability about it and people may be more motivated to participate. So there are kind of benefits of having both. So that's why I was kind of discussing to allow both, to have specific platforms, also have the social media, but as long as the data can be interoperable between both, so you can take from the various sources and integrate it with maybe open data as well, so you have the kind of the official data and statistics and see what kind of interesting analysis you can do over that. So very much compatible. Around the question of the 20-year-old daughter of the immigrants, so very apt for our project because we were dealing with exactly kind of, I'm sure, a 20-year-old daughter of immigrants. And what we really saw was the building up of a network between the public authorities, between the immigrants, between other citizens who cared about immigration for whatever reason, and also the NGOs themselves. So a really kind of a strong network that didn't exist before the project. So there were the NGOs that were working with people on the ground, but maybe the NGOs weren't working very much with each other, or the link with the public authorities was quite weak. So this network that has created through the project is really very strong now in all of the countries, in the municipality of Athens, in Tenerife, in the city of Torino, and also in Hungary. So that's something that we see as a sustainable aspect as well. The low stock of social trust, I mean, this is the state of affairs. This is kind of this is our starting point, this is where we're at. If kind of these e-participation projects relate to direct democracy, I'm not sure. That'd be an interesting discussion to discuss maybe on Lumio or one of our platforms. That maybe it's more participative democracy, that, okay, we're allowed the space to discuss and elaborate and collaborate, but not, when I think of direct democracy, I think of more a referendum kind of a style thing, but I'm not a political scientist, so don't get me wrong. But I guess, like, all people are not going to participate in all consultations. So I guess really if we work with target groups of, okay, well, this is a policy that affects these people, so maybe we can work specifically in that area or with these groups. There's a question from the gentleman at the back about the link to political parties. And so something very strong, and as I kind of mentioned, it's one of our key elements, is this link to policymakers. So organic, grassroots discussions, and that can lead to maybe lobbying or things like that are great and very important. But really to have an impact on policy, you're going to need the involvement of policymakers themselves. And that's difficult because somebody mentioned that, or I think Pedro, you mentioned about that there's a desire for e-democracy but not maybe the want, or it was a very good quote. But in order to kind of get these projects off the ground, you don't need everyone in the chamber or everyone in the local authority to agree. You need one, you need an evangelist, you need somebody that, okay, they see the benefits of it and they can run with it and then build on top of that. So then their colleagues see, well, actually they use that tool, or they use kind of the engagement process, and it worked quite well for that, and to see kind of that trickle effect and the viral effect throughout there. Regarding the cloud and the mob effect, yeah, I was kind of quite struck as well by the mentions of that over I think yesterday in the plenary especially. The crowd and the cloud, I think was kept referred to. It's a tough one, you know. I mean, like, we've dealt with a very contentious issue around immigration policy, and so, for example, especially in Athens, there's a lot of kind of anti-immigrant feeling and attacks on immigrants and things like that. So we were very aware of this issue of really how to control it. So at the beginning we had registration on our platform, but we felt that throughout the project that was more and more of a barrier for people to actually use it for the discussion forum. So we removed it and it's anonymous. And we found that even with it being allowing anonymous contributions, that we haven't come across the kind of the mob element or the hate speech or something like that. But the discussions are moderated, and that will be a part of any kind of participation, I guess.
Thank you very much. Now we have come to the crucial moment of voting. So you've seen and heard three different initiatives. The first one was Puzzled by Policy, presented by Deirdre. The second one was Citizens, presented by Pedro, and the third one was Lumio, co-presented in a pas de deux by Benjamin and Vivian. So should we vote in or out? I suppose we'll vote in. It's always easier for people to raise the hand in favor of someone rather than against someone. We'll change it on the second round, don't worry. Okay, so I suppose... okay, Alina and Siobhan will be counting the votes. So I will ask you to please vote, again, not only on the basis of the beauty of the practice itself, but rather on what you will take back home from it. If you were a mayor or a minister, but mayor is better, which one of these practices would you choose to encourage? Which one would you maybe finance or use? Would you actually base your policies on the results of this practice? So please vote in favor of those who you want to stay in the balloon. You can vote for more than one proposal, but if you vote for three, it means that you can't make a decision. We will not be policing you, but it's a shame not to be able to choose. Okay? So, now, please raise the hand high up for those who want Deirdre and Puzzled by Policy to remain in the balloon, including interpreters, please. Yeah, please make a move. Okay? We have a number. Thank you very much. Who wants Pedro and Citizens to remain in the balloon? Please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Now, who wants Benjamin, Vivian and Lumio to stay on board?
Yeah, I think it's staying.
Yes, we.
I'm taking sort of like, yeah,
Okay, thank you. So do we have the numbers? So Alina, could you please announce us the results of the vote?
Okay. So it's extremely close, but clearly Lumio is a winner with almost 60 votes, and Puzzled gets 28 and Citizens gets 27. Puzzled by policy is 28 and Citizens 27. Should we?
Okay, let's make then a reverse vote for the second, for the two last contendants, because let's say not, I don't trust my...
But they have to go again to no, the second.
Only for the second, yeah. Because I'm sure my collaborators are very good in mathematics, but let's make sure. So now, again, vote in or vote out? Vote out this time, huh?
Out. Who's out?
This time we'll vote out.
Out.
Who wants Pedro and Citizens to leave the balloon, to be thrown out of the balloon? Okay, let's see who dares. Raise the hand.
With a parachute or without?
8, 16 over here, 16 over here.
Okay. So 16? Okay. Now we'll hear the votes, the numbers afterwards. Now, who wants to see Deirdre thrown out of the balloon? Leave it without a parachute, of course. Please raise the hand.
I've got 9. Hold your hands high. 2.
Be brave.
10 over here, 10.
Okay. So it's 36. So 36 people want Deidre out and 26 Citizens out. So Deidre's out. Sorry.
So I'm very sorry, Deirdre, but you have just left the balloon. A last word while you're falling down. It was the only European practice, so it means Europe is not very much held in high esteem.
What can I say? These are all off my Christmas card list, that's all.
Right. So now we have two experiences left. So we still have about 20 minutes for a further round of questions for the two to answer in order to decide who finally stays in the balloon. So again, I will ask for further questions from the floor, please. Yes, please.
Good morning, I am Sergio Lopez. I am one of the young representatives of the Council of Europe Youth Sector. I like that you brought up, finally, at the beginning we were expecting you to mention young people and youth more times. We had to hold our wave for several minutes. I would like to know exactly how do you get youth organizations involved in your projects, because you mentioned them, but I don't know exactly if it is like like a toast to the sun, or it is something that it's really happening, and what's the process to get them involved. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take one or two more questions before giving the floor to yes, Pedro.
We're supposed to speak a little bit further? So I think this is how it was described in the format.
Well, for the moment we changed the format on the spot.
That's okay.
I'm the moderator, sorry. Right, so we'll first take two questions and then you'll have a final say, a final word. if you want to make another 2-3 minutes presentation, right? Okay. Yes, please.
Andranik Tangian, Hans Böckler Foundation, Düsseldorf, and Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. So I have very bad experiences with officials myself. European Commission, who itself wanted to know the opinion from different institutions on some occasion, absolutely ignored all the proposals and issued then communication without taking into account. So my question, how do you institutionalize the bridge between your opinion you deliver somehow and from the other side of the official? How does it work?
And yes.
Please. I apologize, but since we have now to decide among the two of you, I have a quite technical, more technical question, which in some way follow the former one. And my question is, in order to make a connection with the institution more sustainable, we need to filter proposals coming from the citizenry. And I have some experience, we discussed it yesterday, with liquid feedback, which looks, but for the user interface, I am not so interested to user interface which can be changed, but with the engine which is behind the interface. And I have some experience with liquid feedback, which looks interesting in terms of filtering the ideas in order to be able to provide the institution some of them. And I would like to understand which is the filtering mechanism behind your approach. Thanks.
Okay,
could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Fiorella De Cindi, University of Milano, Computer Science Department.
Okay, so we'll ask the two contestants to answer these questions. According to the time, maybe we take another round afterwards, and then you'll have a final, let's say, moment to argue for your remaining in the balloon. Okay? So please, Pedro, can you answer the questions first?
So there was this question about how do you involve youth people. So right now what we are running is a kind of proof of concept pilot project in a region of Alcalá, and somehow I would say in this context there is no need to focus on the youth people depending on what you are referring to. So this focus on youth organizations, I will have to say, risking to go out of the balloon, that somehow it is very nice in Europe and youth and we jump, etc. But what we have is a strong connection with social movements, with 15M, with neighborhood associations, with immigrants associations, and if they see the benefit that they can get, they are part of it. And especially the young people who are using this kind of technologies much more. So it's just natural. So it is not really, in this case, there is not such a need. So they just are taking it. Okay? So most of the people who are using it, it's youth people. So actually, it is more difficult. So we have to take more care to get all the people to participate. So I have the impression that speaking of this kind of media, it is not the young people who are naturally excluded somehow. Yeah. Then, can you show me the?
Oh, sorry.
So, how do you get institutional alliance?
We're collaborating. We're collaborating.
Collaborating? Yeah. So how do you get to the institutions? And well, the system, so citizens is very much about local environment, so it is not about reaching the European Union. But in the case of citizens, the idea behind is that So it is not the system. So again, the system is supporting actions taken by society or taken by the authorities, okay? And in an open way, in a transparent, so everything is kind of constitute like a memory of what is happening, why, etc. So in case the politicians at the local level are willing to get involved and they are living up to the promises, so if they are asking for input, they are receiving it and then they are using it. Everything is this collaborative scenario, but in the case they are not, actually one of the first activities that people who are trying to change things or to do things, to get things done, that will do is to find the ways to make pressure on these politicians. And this means that these kind of tools, one of the things that can be used for by having links to petitions, by having facility to call people, to concentrate, to get access to media, etc., is to exert pressure where it hurts to the politicians. So it is sad, but we all act based on our, how do you call it? Our set of stimulus, so what our interests are and what it hurts us. And so if you want politicians to participate, they need to feel that they have more to win by participating than avoiding it. So somehow they have to feel that in the next election this could hurt them, because maybe the citizens will say, you know what, we are so tired of you that we are going to organize our own political party, and there is nothing that scares more local politicians than people ignoring the traditional parties. So this, it is a stick and carrot. So if you want, we cooperate, but if not, we are going to move.
30 seconds.
Yeah. And the final question, filtering. So this is more relevant for a system which is like deliberative, etc. In this case, there is not, so citizens is providing this kind of guidance that Benjamin was speaking about, telling people, if you want to achieve this, these are the tools that you can follow, these are the processes. There could be a link to any platform for liquid democracy that is implementing it, or it can be like to a petition system in some cases, which is much more easy to understand by politicians, etc. So, so the focus is not this kind of filtering or democracy.
Thank you very much. And now the floor is to Lumio, Benjamin, and Vivian.
Okay, so the first question, which we're very glad to hear, was about how we engage with young people, how we make sure we're really involving young people in our project. So one way is that we've put it in a format that young people seem to be just naturally taking to much more quickly. So it's meeting people where they're at. Anyone familiar with Facebook or Twitter finds Lumio really easy to engage with. Another aspect of it is when there is a public engagement exercise being conducted through Lumio, we work with the local government body or the government department to develop their engagement strategy with them to make sure that they're actually speaking in a language that young people can understand and will engage with, which they have a lot of trouble with. So we've got quite a lot of work in that area. So the next question was to do with... Oh, the other thing is that the team building Lumio has an average age of about 25. So technically, it's a tool that's sort of being built by youth for youth. Do you want to talk about transparency?
So one of the question was...
Building a bridge.
We're talking about bad experiences with officials and how do you build that bridge. This is a really important question because people need to feel like what they participate in matters and it will be used. I have a personal view that this is an intergenerational learning. This won't be a one experience learning. But what we're building into Lumio so that we help that is transparency. every comment everybody can read, the discussion is archived, the contribution of the officials is kind of framed differently. So officials in these groups are invited to serve the group. So bring forward expertise or bring forward data or other people who could inform views that the group is interested in exploring. So in this way, officials become very much more accessible than if you are going through the bureaucratic system of a doorway and then an office and then another office and then somewhere else down a long corridor. And then you don't get much time to ask the question you're interested in. So it's about bringing the context of the contact between people and officials into a much more respectful and mutually satisfying and then transparent environment.
So another part of it is that it makes it really easy for officials who are developing policy to feed back that policy to the group of citizens who are engaged in this collaboration. So they can feed back each step of policy development, which keeps things transparent and accountable. The third question was about filtering of content, so maintaining a good signal-to-noise ratio in a process that's involving lots of people and lots of ideas. So we see this real effect of sort of the community of people engaging in the process organically filtering the content themselves. So you can see very clearly where there are areas of shared agreement. Because people aren't constrained by a predetermined discussion with defined parameters set by the institution or the officials, anyone can start a discussion on any topic. You can see where agreement is lying, you can see where common concerns are, and you can see the things that people feel most passionately about. You see the outcome of their decisions and you also see the reasoning behind their decisions. And the approach that we're taking is starting small and then scaling up. So scaling the features up to be able to handle larger and larger numbers of people participating in a single discussion, using crowd tagging and crowd filtering so people can tag comments as particularly useful or a good summary of the discussion to that point or providing new information so that when you come into a discussion you can just click show me the most useful comments in this discussion as chosen by the community of people in the discussion. That's about it. Another part of it is that we see Lumio as one tool in an ecosystem of tools. So different tools will be more appropriate for different numbers of people and discussions at different scale, and different decision-making protocols are more appropriate to different types of decision. So we see it being very important that we build as much interoperability into the system as possible so that you can be, say, making a decision with a group of 300 people in Lumio, and then when it goes out to a wider community of, say, 5,000 people, you can switch over into something like liquid feedback that allows for dynamic delegation, or you can also switch into a tool that allows for representation, or just different tools for different purposes rather than a one-size-fits-all, this is the ultimate system for democracy approach.
Like a project like Valfredo, which starts off raising proposals from experts or people who really understand the area and then puts that out to the crowd. I mean, there are many great projects. So finally, how does Lumio summarise and pull through agreement? And once again, the crowd does that.
Sorry, Vivian, you're out of time.
We're out of time, great.
Okay, sorry. But yes, indeed, we mentioned yesterday that you might have a second round of short presentation, 3 minutes. Well, we lied. But indeed, there were still questions in the room. But now I suppose you can have your final, let's say, word if you want, 3 minutes to 4, whereas you can do whatever you want with them. You can present, or you can convince, or you can beg people to keep you in the balloon.
So, actually, one of the rules of an intelligence group is never to vote when you have already reached some kind of consensus. And I think we have a clear consensus. Let's save time. I think we are all agreeing that Lumio is a developed experience and citizens is still in the process of creation. So I am jumping out of the balloon. We are winning 2 minutes because I think it's the general sentiment, right? So the 15M, they make like this, and if nobody is blocking it, so we have the finalists, and they can answer. What I wanted to share, and it is important, so I wanted to, well, answer, but this was already answered with with the questions. This is what Benjamin was talking about, not this, ecosystem. So you really need different tools for different things. There is a Lumio there is a Trello, there is YouTube, and this is how it needs to be. And you need also what you see somewhere, it is below, orientation, activist orientation. So this, how you give resources to people so they can know what they have to use for everything. But what I wanted to say you is not what citizens can offer you, but what citizens need from you. And this is what we need. So this is because last month, in the workshop from participation of the European Union, one of the participants said a nice sentence. So for an e-participation project, 30,000 euros are peanuts. And I am sure, so many here will be kind of angry to hear that. So, my God, Facebook, the first version was probably a third of that. Lumio first version, probably with 30,000 euros, you had already the first version running, right? So, it is, we are running right now a crowdfunding campaign to finance the construction of the first pilots. Our objective is just one peanut. It is 10,001. And, well, I wanted to ask you, so you are especially sensible people with this subject, so I do not know how much this conference costed. I guess it was not cheap. So if we are not able to, from such a publicum, and not just you, so if you really thought that citizens can be interested, you can go to this address, investigate a little bit, and let know your people, your networks, that this is worth. We are at the 45%. So it is not much, but if this is not receiving kind of help, well, I think it is like a collective failure of this conference. And that was it, simply.
Thank you very much. I myself am not... I myself am not among the organizers of this conference, and I'm afraid I don't know how much it must have cost, but maybe we could have the answer from someone. We don't have anyone from the organizers around here. I'm a humble moderator. I'll just ask to make sure that you keep the time limits. So now, a final word in your favor for New Zealand, Lumio, Vivian and Benjamin.
Kia ora koutou. Is this on? Yes, it is a very kind of strange experience to be such deep collaborators, kind of figuring out how to do the art of collaboration and find ourselves in a hot air balloon in a competition. So it's kind of deep gratitude to our peers in this space, and you know, I can see that the organisers have had a real dilemma between participation and energy and focus, and the real heart of what we're talking about here is how as human beings we work together in profoundly new ways. So with the spirit of that in mind, you know, the hot air balloon isn't a metaphor that, that really rings for us either. Lumio and the future, I think the thing that we really see for the future is to empower people wherever they are to be involved in the decisions that affect them. So if you can imagine a cooperative of potato farmers having their potatoes going to market today and needing to be able to make a decision at what price to sell. And at the moment that's a delegated price. Somebody has to make that decision on their own. After many years in chief executive positions, I can tell you that is always a lonely place. So to share that decision with the producers is just way better. So we're wanting to develop the technology of Lumio so that you can look on your smartphone or through SMS and be told the information about the price of potatoes today, and you can say yes or no to selling at that price, along with all your other co-producers. Or that in New Zealand right now we're debating whether to do offshore oil drilling. And in fact the young people of New Zealand are leading a huge discussion about whether this is a good thing, and they're doing it on Lumio. They're creating networks of people to discuss the pros and cons, bring in the experts and kind of synergise what they would like to be saying to government in such a way that it's not ignorable. So this is our vision. Around the room we've left some case studies for you to look at about the ways Lumio is being used, very diverse. And so right now we have 8,000 users. In 5 years we'd like it to be 50 million users. And that, you know, we want to change the way the world makes decisions.
Thank you very much. Now we will get to the voting, but I remind you that afterwards we will continue our discussions, and I will invite the floor, comments from the floor, discussions, other questions among ourselves. Well, they are out of the balloon, but they can still speak and take the floor by some miracle. And we will continue the discussions and presentations after the vote. Did we tell you that we will finish at 11:30? Well, we lied as well. We can continue a bit more, I suppose, if there is interest and as long as we are having fun together. So now, I suppose we will take the vote. Vote in or vote out? What do you prefer?
I think there is no need. I jumped. So
no, it's not your decision. No, I'm afraid.
Oh yeah, it is my decision to jump out of the balloon. So, well, you can do it, but...
Oh, right. Wow.
You're handcuffed.
This is the problem with the situation.
No suicides here.
Okay, then, no. Okay, if Pedro doesn't want to go to a vote, then we have a winner, well, two winners. By some miracle we can have two persons in the balloon this time. We lied again. So I think we can give a round of applause to all the three participants and to their presentations, and I think their presentations were very interesting, and I think we had a good debate, and I hope that we will continue to have a good debate now on more open questions, more generally, not only on these specific subjects. Okay. So now we are getting to the third leg of our show, and I invite any comments, observations or more general remarks from the floor. Who wants to take the floor? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dejan Markovic from Serbia, under the European Foundation under Council of Europe, as my friends Sergio and Antti. So just one really short question, how you can guarantee safety of data and issues that are discussed on your platform? It's a really short question before we give you the yacht conclusions of this discussion. So thanks.
Okay, maybe okay, so we will answer maybe two questions, but then we will give you the floor at the end to just give us your opinions, but I would like to open more the floor now, not only about these practices. Yes, please.
David Bovell from lobby.org. Yeah, a question kind of about scale. There are a number of excellent projects like Lumio with tiny teams of developers, tiny budgets, and there's a huge democratic deficit, large problems, and yet there is no one able to properly fund actual tools. We've got 3 presentations here and 1 software project. Yeah? I'd like to ask everyone here, in terms of institutions, and I'd like to ask the panel, what plans are there to actually put serious financial resources into developing these tools and maybe combining some of them?
Thank you for this general open question. So, Vivian, you want to...
Actually, I have a request. I'm just conscious how many men's voices we've heard this morning in this room, and I'd love to hear what some of the women in the room are thinking or wondering.
Okay, well, let's then, in order to reply to your request, I'll give the floor to another man. I'm afraid that we only have one hand which was raised.
So anyway, voila. Anyway, my name is Sergio. I'm also with the young people among the room, having a different role though. And my question would be, well, one of the conclusions that I think it's possible to extract from this forum, and not only from this forum, is democracy is a work in progress. I wanted to understand if you have kind of a deep thinking in the pedagogical potential of your tools, namely with the institutions. This is the question. Thank you.
Okay. Steve, you wanted to take the floor.
Well, thank you. So I wanted to just quickly share 20 years of like the top 5 tips from building local democracy online. eDemocracy was founded in 1994 with the world's first election information website, but we actually really focus on neighborhood engagement online today. We have about 25,000 users, mostly in Minnesota, but also a few neighborhoods and cities in the UK and actually in Christchurch in New Zealand. If we frame local participation online as politics, about 1% of households will show up. That's our lesson. If you embrace community life exchange, we're up to 30% of households in my own neighborhood where we have 1,200 participants roughly out of 30% of households. That's an area with 10,000 people. And so what we found is that by being very broad at the local level, more so than in national politics, right, we can actually engage people. And ironically, like cats are our #1 recruiting tool, right? People lose their cats, they know how to find their cats, they join their community forum, they find their cat, hopefully, or we talk about the coyotes, but, and then they stay. And then there's a discussion with a local elected official about a new development, the height of the building in the shade, or the need for a better stoplight at an intersection. So the #1 thing that I found by being local, my third point, is that elected officials can answer this crucial question. They are my voters. They are my voters. So that allows them to engage in more constituent type services, but it is on the shoulders of we, the neighbors, to actually create the value, and so it has that organic piece. The last thing I'll say is that new voices. Is after 20 years, it's pretty clear that the people who have typically showed up offline are dominating online. In fact, even more so in that you have polarization happening online. And we actually have some funding. So we have the Knight Foundation grant, $625,000 over 3 years. We're going into our 3rd year. And we basically said, how can we do neighbors forums in low-income, high-immigrant, highly diverse neighborhoods to build bridges across race and across communities? Because we have a common interest, but we don't have a shared purpose necessarily. We have a common interest in our neighborhood, so it's a little different. So our #1 lesson is just ask. We actually go door to door. We do it at community festivals. We do it in person. But a lot of times, whether it's online or offline, we actually just forget to ask different types of people. And you mentioned targeting, to target different constituencies. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for giving these comments and for giving us a very useful tip for stimulating participation, which I'll call the SMC tool, Steal More Cats.
Yes.
Right. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Annelies Dijkstra. I'm representing the European Law Students Association, so also part of the young people in the room and part of the women in the room. So I would like to ask, in the Law Students Association we've been trying to implement online tools for several different things, especially decision-making purposes. And one thing we run into is that you always try to implement new tools, but the sustainability of it is very difficult. And I was wondering, on a general level, but also on a specific level, how can you kind of guarantee the sustainability, especially when it comes to archiving and continuity, especially when you're with students, you kind of switch all the time, and you have to kind of find some way how to connect the different people with each other to be able to implement the tool over and over again, to be able to use it as a good tool for sustainability.
Yes, yes, please. Thomas.
Thank you. That was an interesting question. I am a lawyer also, so welcome lawyers. How many of you are here? I don't know. I think it's a crucial question in democracy. So one person, one vote. How do you guarantee this thing? And in my country, we are so small country, 1.3 million inhabitants, and capital city only 1/3 of population. And we have a very advanced system. We have electronic ID cards, everybody, with electronic IDs. So 2 PIN code system, one for recognizing yourself to go into the system, and second to vote, to decide to make a digital sign. So if you have an instrument like this, you can do everything. For example, electronic elections. We got from last elections 21% of all votes via internet, from home, from everywhere, from computer. We can make public opinion polls. We run these in city level. There was a question about alcohol. We also run the question through the same system in 2004, and because of there was 21,000 votes against it to finish it at 10 o'clock, and now new legislation is done and no more alcohol in the shops after 10 o'clock. So last year we voted for free public transportation in Tallinn, 68,000 votes, 75% yes, 25% no, and since this year it's free for Tallinn citizens. And also we have a same kind of thing, we call it petition, and where you can put up your own question, register again through your ID to the system, you put your question and you get answers. You make the time limit to a question and so on. So it's a good thing, and also 92% of all tax declarations were sent electronically. So and basic of this is this electronic identity. Yeah. If you are the smaller country, it's not a big problem if there is a political will to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a request from the back of the room, yes.
So my name is Nicholas Mavridis. I am here as a representative of the Demiurgia party in Greece, and also as an academic. I'm a PhD from MIT. So I would like to thank you very much for the very interesting comments and presentations. I have a very, very practical, if you want, question to the audience, and I think that it's time for us to address it one way or another. So I've been hearing about the pressure required towards politicians at the local government level in order to adopt such things. Our own personal experience is actually one, not so much of pressure, but of lack of adequate motivation and lack of adequate information. So even in countries like the Emirates, where I have been living for a while, some years ago, I mean, local mayors of small cities would really want to know more about, what their people are thinking, and they would be quite reluctant to actually get somebody to get this information for them. Of course, whether this would become something that's publicly available is a different story, but at least at the level of knowing, there's a very, very strong willingness. In the case of Greece, actually, there is a lot of willingness to actually implement the tools, but there has not been a single package, if you want. It could be something like a 20-minute video together with a small booklet that could act as the introductory package with which we could go to every mayor which would be interested and go to him and tell him, okay, you want to start playing with digital democracy? This is 20 minutes of experience gathered from other cities with a nice video together with feedback from other mayors, and these are the first steps that you can take, and we can help you to implement them. It's a very, very simple and concrete action. It's just a booklet, a presentation, and a 20-minute video. And this would really make a difference towards spreading what we're talking about over here. So therefore, I would like to ask you, is there a way for us to get towards creating this material? That's it.
Okay, just before, I think I have another demand here, but just before, I would like also to invite you to reflect on the last part of our discussions on a question I would like to ask myself. What can the Council of Europe do about all this? Can it do anything? Should it do anything? And indeed, I mean, the Council of Europe is a meeting place and a forum for exchanges like this, but they may be indeed very expensive unless there is something very practical which gets out of this. How can we make sure that our discussions turn into something which is useful for you, not for us? Something that the Council of Europe, can it develop new standards? Can it give guidelines? Can it identify good practice? Can it promote it? Can it develop tools? What should we do? Because today, this afternoon, our rapporteur, Mr. Lammers-Kitten, will have to say this to the plenary. And of course he will give guidance in general, but he, I suppose, will want to tell to our, let's say, Committee of Ministers what the Council of Europe should do. So maybe now you have the floor.
Thank you. I believe that... sorry? Oh, sorry. Okay. My name is Mika Burek. I'm working for the Nordic Council of Ministers in St. Petersburg. And I would sort of come to the thing that we have been talking very much about now, is that the citizens have a will. They should be able to express it. They should be able to discuss among themselves. But then we have the other side. The will should be expressed to somebody who should be listening to it. It should be taken into account. And there I see that there is something that we can do together with the Council of Europe. The Nordic Cooperation has started in 52 as the Nordic Council Interparliamentary Forum, and since 71 we have the Nordic Council of Ministers. That's an intergovernmental organization for the 5 Nordic countries. We are having a project going on with the Council of Europe concerning promoting good governance principles in Northwest Russia inside our knowledge building and networking program, where we have organized seminars and study trips. And here we have tried to enhance the role of regional and local institutions in facilitating the rule of law and democracy development by presenting Nordic and European approaches to public administration. There are 12 principles of good democratic governance at local level that have been adopted by the Council of Europe and the countries. They have not been implemented in many countries. It seems Norway is at least the only Nordic country, participating in this project. We have partners from the Northwest Russian regions, Nordic and Baltic countries, and we have tried to raise awareness of the key principles of good governance. In the training program, we had the focus on the good governance principles and the strategies, and we have had about 40 civil servants from Northwest Russia trained in 3 sessions. And they have been doing projects in order to see how these principles could be developed in their region, what could be done in order to get the better governance and to have transparency and better cooperation between citizens and the officials. They have also participated in the study trips where Nordic approaches, values and ways of implementing good governance principles and other democratic processes and community involvement has been presented. There I can mention Estonia as one of the examples. As we just heard about the electronic way of voting, of participating, of decision-making even at the governmental level, that was one of the study trips in Norway as the only European country that has introduced a national action plan. There's also been media training. because the journalists have a role to play, because it's very important what information the citizens have access to, what information they can get. So there have been seminars and webinars about the approaches to interaction between media and authorities, the rule of law and human rights. And in order to go more to a level where we see how the work functions, there's also been monitoring made that on selected good governance principles, and to see how the centers of public services functions in St. Petersburg. And surprisingly, the services are diverse and they function rather well. They go to unemployed persons, trainings of women on maternity leave, but the problem is that the citizens don't know about them. The stereotypes and civil servants should have better e-tools to get, and e-services to get to the citizens so that the information can come out. And here we hope to get results concerning best practices on these principles. And we have benchmarks, developed a good governance benchmark by the Nordic Council of Europe that has been translated and adopted to the Northwest Russian regions and to Russia as such. And the awareness of the key principles have been raised. And we hope that the Nordic and Baltic approaches on local and regional level would would give a toolkit, a good governance toolkit that will be developed now during the next year, including then best practices and projects from the Russian participants, including civil society and media, and the projects that are planned, that are made already as study works for the local administration school in Northwest Russia will be part of this. And we hope to have a final conference next year where we can discuss the toolkit and other things. And of course it could be good to have participants from here also, so if there's any interest, I would be glad to include people in the list of invited people to participate. I hope this can give some ideas about what the Council of Europe can do, what other regional organizations can do, because active citizens is a good thing, but they should have somebody to talk to. And so a dialogue, it takes two parts. Yeah. I hope this can be of some help.
Thank you very much, and indeed this reminds me the fact that we do have these 12 European principles which were adopted, and the first one is citizen participation, and indeed based on this we have developed a benchmark and a quality label that can be delivered to local authorities which fulfill a number of criteria. But now maybe I will ask the lady behind who had raised her hand first to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to come back to the issue about software. Let me say, maybe you noticed that in the opening session of this forum, one of the Mr. Speaker was Stefano Rodotà from Italy. He was former guarantee for the privacy. I am lucky to share with Stefano some work, some ideas, and the idea that we are working around is the idea that in the future probably democracy will be embedded in some piece of software. This is probably the way in which the idea that we have to reshape democracy in the digital era will bring us. So I really believe that the Council of Europe should, if I should give a suggestion, I am, let me say, a bit impressed that probably I am one of the few people from computer science department here. So I believe that it should be more concerned, the computer science department in this stuff, and that we really need to pay great attention to the way in which to the rules which are embedded into the software, because these will be probably rules for the, so to say, new democracy. And I agree that we have not just one tool which solves all the problem right now. I would like to remember Tim Berners-Lee paper on web science and other colleagues, when they say that in this context of social machines, we cannot test solutions in laboratories. We need to have real-life tests, understanding what works and what doesn't work, and so that we can improve the solutions. And I believe that this is really necessary to have occasion, like we had here, to meet people who develops a platform together with political scientists, sociologists and other disciplines. I had a workshop in Milano in half of September where also, unfortunately, no one of them is here, but we have a groups of 50 developers developing platforms similar to the one we have seen today, and I believe that these young forces should be put all together to develop their future, maybe with some help from us, with some grey hair, so that we can help to maintain the core of democracy, but trying to do something new. So my suggestion to the Council of Europe is really focus on this issue as far as possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just a word of order. It's 11:32. I had the intention to continue debates until the room is half empty, so you can, just like online, you can vote with your feet, right? Okay, so Deirdre, I suppose you have the floor.
Thank you. Just to follow on what this lady was discussing, I completely agree. I'm also a computer scientist from that domain. So I'd like to maybe offer some really practical suggestions from my experience in Puzzle by Policy of how we can do exactly what you have suggested. So Puzzle by Policy is a European Commission funded project, and so we discussed funding earlier on, and there's a lot of funding available from the European Commission. So really, how can we utilise it maybe in a better way that it's being utilised now? I mean, projects like Puzzle by Policy are great, but they're very big and they're very long. They involve a lot of partners, and it's difficult. It really is difficult to build a realistic sustainability out of it. All of the tasks are very divided, so when you want to come together at the end, maybe with one commercial entity or a social enterprise, it's difficult to try and align all of these tasks. So, but what we have at the minute is this kind of programme of funding. So from the European Commission has recently, or has just launched its new funding project, Horizon 2020, and within that there's a lot of scope for funding new projects under the e-societal societal challenges stream, and there's a focus on cross-dimensional. So I would encourage all of you here today to look into that call to see where you could be interested, where you could apply for funding within that. And from our own experience that we have found, okay, there's a lot of academic institutes, there's some public institutes, and even from the software, from a technical point of view, that SMEs and software experts are participating. But where we would like to see a lot more is from the civil society and from social enterprises, to allow them to participate in these projects. And that can be difficult because of all the bureaucracy that's involved in applying. So really, I mean, I encourage everyone to try and participate in existing funds like Horizon 20, but especially CSOs and social enterprises. But so for the Council of Europe, I also would advise, because maybe to focus more on smaller projects, smaller timeframes, smaller funding, and maybe even a staged approach. So we'll fund 100 projects for 6 months, see how it goes, and okay, pick maybe the best 50 and move on in that way, because technology moves a lot quicker than the 3 or 4 years and all of the projects are funded for. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a reflection. Hi everyone, my name is Antti Reinsalo. I come from Finland, but I'm here as a representative of the youth sector of the Council of Europe. And I would like to reflect on the fact that whether the citizens are listened to. So I think the most important point here is that where does that listening leads to. So that's the key in all of these processes. But then coming back to the question of the youth, we don't want to exclude the older generations. I think what we want to see is also the intergenerational dialogue, not only in digital local democracy, but in democracy as a whole. So this is also a message what we want to put through. As Deirdre just mentioned, that the pace of the technology is changing really fast, and the case usually is that the young people are the early adapters to these kind of technological changes. So we are there, we are able to create things ourselves, engage us, and we will be ready to work on this field, keeping in mind the intergenerational dialogue. Thank you.
Yes, the gentleman
behind. On the question of what the Council of Europe should do to facilitate this process, firstly, it needs to stop doing some things. It needs to stop funding dinosaurs. In other words, long projects with slow deliberations, with lots of stakeholders that simply can't keep pace. The point's already been made. What it should do is do something very simple, lightweight and agile, like a challenge fund in this area. A challenge fund for software projects with proven users. Not ideas, but there are existing projects that are struggling. These projects should be able to tender and enter a challenge fund competition to get resourced. In addition, I would disagree with what Deirdre says about lots of small projects. These projects need to cooperate. They need to define programmatic interfaces between them to scale their user bases and share their technologies. So the Challenge Fund should specify that teams of small projects should cooperate to succeed in the challenge. Simple, lightweight, agile.
Can you please introduce yourself?
My name's David Bovell. I'm from lobby.org, and we're starting a global open democracy Kickstarter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Yuri Fukorski. I was a youth delegate last year in the Assembly. After the Assembly, we founded an organization called the European Youth Council, and to answer the question like what can the Council of Europe do? Well, first of all, yesterday we had a meeting with several people, including Steve and Robert from the Citizens Foundation, Pedro from Citizens, and Benjamin from Lumio. What we need, what we want, what we desire is more collaboration between all of us to create a sort of structure so that is that addresses all these different things that we see in e-democracy, but it's also user-friendly and in a way that can actually reach a large percentage of the population that we need to have an actual e-democracy, so to speak. So what the Council of Europe can do, it can support this collaboration. It can do this by facilitating meetings here in Strasbourg, by ensuring that people who don't have the financial means to come here, that they can be paid to come here. They can also support these initiatives by providing financial support to developers like Citizense. And most importantly, what we've also discussed yesterday with, in the Digital Democracy Lab is that as we, one of the main challenges with, for instance, a platform like Liquid Feedback is that it is very difficult for citizens to respond on a daily basis to the high volume of output of general politics, so to speak. So we do need some form of media, but we cannot rely solely on the mainstream media because they have been proven inept again and again. I mean, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we are here discussing a very important issue, and may I just ask an important question? Where is the media? Like, when there's a celebrity event, there's always media, but now all the world leaders are gathering and there is no media. So we cannot solely rely on the mainstream and corporate media, and what the Council of Europe can be instrumental in is by starting to subsidize citizen journalism. If they start doing that, then we can actually create a more critical mass that is essential to make e-democracy platforms work. And yeah, also in terms of youth participation, because what we see with all these initiatives that have been presented today is largely the youth that are behind these, and also in politics it's mostly the youth that have progressive ideas, but they are not really taken seriously in the discussions. Like in last year's event we had a parliamentary assembly with the youth and the parliamentary members. Well, they brought 150 of the most politically active youth from Europe and beyond to this conference, to Strasbourg, and they were only 5 parliamentary members. So what we need is like real commitment from from politicians by, for instance, supporting an initiative by as the European Youth Council, by making sure that the politically active youth can come to Strasbourg and actually engage in a real debate, but actually and that they can see that there is effect of their commitment, that they're not just there for ceremonial senses like Pedro. We have a desire here for people to participate, but we don't really want them to participate to have actual influence. So we need to change that, and we need the Council of Europe to demonstrate to us that they are willing to do that and that they are willing to be part of that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a little announcement. In the stand of citizens, we got 8 chairs, and we have organized some kind of informal dialogues, and one is very much related to this. So we will have in half an hour I've missed the name. So we will have one discussion with Professor Schmitter about insurrectional technopolitics at the local level, and then another which is called how we improve EU support for e-democracy. It will be like a small dialogue. So if you want to go there, we can continue it in a smaller also group. Yeah.
Where is that?
The stand of Kyopol. It is all pink. You cannot miss it at the end.
Sorin?
The blue road.
Yeah, Sorin first.
I was provoked and intrigued by a remark which was made before from that part about financial support. So who would support such initiatives that need some amounts of money? This was related to the question of the role of the Council of Europe. Of course, the Council of Europe can offer a platform for debate and visibility to such initiative, but obviously not vast amounts of money, because it's not the role of the Council of Europe in general. And there are 2 obvious sources. You can have private sources or public sources of money. Private sources, are about creativity. You approach people and start to persuade them to give you money. There's not much to discuss here. Public sources, from my experience, we've played with these concepts, mentally, differ very much. Their accessibility, the easiness to access and to work with the public administration to do something like this differs a lot depending on the political tradition of the countries. It's one thing to do it in Northern Europe and another thing to do it in Southern Europe or in the Balkans with public money. In my region, there are no public money for such things, national public money. However, what I want to tell you, probably you know it already, and I will conclude with this, there are EU funds, at least for the EU member countries and the candidate countries, and there is an instrument which is called CLLD, Community-Led Local Development, so this is one of the nice EU acronyms, that has this philosophy. You use public money to do things in the local community, including public infrastructure, but not only. You can have also social development, all sorts of initiatives. But the beneficiary is not the public institution, is not the local government. It's not just the mayor, or it's not the mayor at all who signs the contract. The contract is a so-called local action group, so private people. It sounds very nice. It can be a way, an avenue for such initiatives. In practice, it is much more difficult, especially when EU money are involved, because rigidity, timelines, focus on procedures and not so much on outcome. You know the drill when you access public funds. So your enthusiasm might die after the first 3 years of waiting your project to be approved. We are into this. And another point is that for some reason, some people thought that CLLD type of projects will be most appropriate in marginalized communities. I don't know why they thought like that, because it is actually more difficult to run such a project with a local action group, which is not the local government. Actually, you need to coagulate some people in a group to formalize it and to sign a contract with them. This is natural, it's common sense. It is more difficult to do it in a marginalized community, but for some reason, then I want to tell you that in the next programming cycle, the next 7 years in the EU, many countries in Eastern Europe, they thought that this is a solution for tackling, for example, the Roma community problems. I think it will be a huge challenge, but probably also an opportunity to go and use this money, but keep in mind that there are big bureaucratic obstacles. The stakes are high, but also you know to know the drills and to pull the ropes for this. Okay, so that was my observation.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the Council of Europe, as you know, doesn't have huge amounts of money, as euphemistically said Sorin. Indeed, the Council of Europe...
British understatement.
Okay. Council of Europe costs European taxpayer 23 euro cents per year per person, and I suppose the whole budget of the Council of Europe is lower than the communication budget of the European Union. But we can indeed make also suggestions to the European Union. So I think we are reaching the threshold. So I will take 2 more interventions, I think, and I have two more persons here. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Nicolas Brier. I'm from France, and I am involved in complementary currencies through Objectif Gaia, an association close to Geneva. And I know that I'm involved in democracy and in new finance, in creating new type of money that is where democracy is inbuilt, because it's very connected, of course, because if you have people who have the money can decide on what's going to happen, because, you know, as we know. And I've heard that this conference cost 1 million euros, which is a lot of money, but I think it's really worthwhile, so I'm not judging, and I think it's important to have such type of events. And I would love media to be covering it, of course, also. What I wanted to say is that if this event happens every year from now, it will be very interesting to have some of the money allocated, open here, and like the people participating in the event would decide on where the money is invested, like a contest of different projects presenting like this morning, and like we will all decide on who gets the funding or some of the funding. That will be a very interesting way to really do practical democracy as we are here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And the last, indeed the last intervention from the floor, gentleman from the right. Thank you.
Andranik Tangen, so Hans Böckler Foundation, Düsseldorf, and Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. So I have 2 proposals, what the Council of Europe could do. First proposal is very easy and simple and so light-minded. You may deliver all the participants of the inventions presented here some kind of certificate for extraordinary or any achievement in the way they will come home, show the certificate, and maybe it may help to raise funds. If the Council of Europe can additionally give a small sum of money to support the weight of this certificate, it will be even more. But I know that there may be some bureaucratic difficulties, but already this certificate may help a lot. My second issue is much more complicated. So I had an occasion to write a history of democracy recently. And I have discovered for myself, maybe you know it well, but I'm not sure, that the commitment to democracy is a very recent phenomenon. To my opinion, it is the product of the Cold War. So neither the American Constitution nor any of its amendments makes any reference to democracy. French Constitution for the first time mentions democracy in 1958. No Soviet republic was called democratic, but in 1945 it started so immediately Democratic Republic of Vietnam, People's Republic of China, and so on. About 20 countries appeared with the word democracy in their names. So Soviet Constitution for the first time mentions democracy also in 1977 in the fourth. So I can deliver many examples. For the first time, the United Nations defined democracy 9 years ago. The fathers of the United States explicitly rejected democracy. And for instance, 300 years, Edmund Burke in Ireland has pronounced a speech where he explained that the delegates of the parliament shouldn't listen to the voice of the public. And this document is studied by all American political science students. So what can do the Council of Europe for this? Explicitly explain in one of communication or any official document, because only the official documents are sources of real references, that there is a reconsideration of the principles of representative government, and that democracy is not simply a banner to promise people something in order to stabilize the society, but something more than that. So this is my proposal.
Thank you very much. And with this, I would like to thank you all, to thank Pedro, Vivian, Benjamin and Deidre for their presentations and contributions. Thank the panelists, the challengers for their questions, but also every one of you who played the game, voted in or out, and then participated in the debates. And thank you also to the interpreters for their contribution. So I think we now deserve our lunch. Thank you for coming.